Alright then guys, welcome back to the client case study series. Today we're going to be talking about Emma. So Emma is actually my single longest serving online coaching client. She's the first person I ever coached online and she's still with me today, I think 8, maybe even 8 years later. So Emma is someone that has gone from being sort of quite overweight in her younger years. She then got very, very skinny and is now someone with an absolutely unbelievable physique. And I thought she'd be a really cool person to go through her sort of like long-term progressions with today, because she is the female version of Corey, who I discussed last week. So she is the single female client I have most people say, yeah, I would love to look like that. And she's also a great example of just how possible it is for women to add significant amounts of muscle mass over time. Like, there's this really common misconception that because women have low testosterone levels, they can't add muscle. But, this isn't true. Estrogen works exactly the same as testosterone in men for women, and it allows them to build muscle. And Emma is a fantastic example. Emma and I actually used to work together when I first joined the fitness industry 11 years ago now as a PT. And Emma had recently lost like her first bit of weight at that stage. So she'd gone from overweight to extremely skinny. She then started having coaching with one of my clients. So I was at a weird stage where I was PTing almost all the other PTs on the team, as well as I think the manager and the head coach, PT lead or whatever you call it, David Lloyd back in 2016 or whatever. So she was getting coaching from one of my clients. He was a semi-pro footballer that I was coaching, doing stuff like ankle rehab and sports performance. And I was basically vicariously coaching her in a way. So he would ask me what to do with her, and then I would make recommendations on what to do with her training as she started on her muscle building journey. This guy then left to pursue the dream of playing professional football, and Emma came onto me as my first ever online coaching client. So Emma's initial goals were basically, I want to build as much lower body muscle as I possibly can. She'd got very, very skinny and now wanted to basically build some shape. She was doing, all kinds of mad stuff in the gym, and she wanted to learn. And I would say that Emma's sort of like unbelievable progress over the last, really like 9 years or so basically comes down to 2 major factors. Number one, she committed to the long-term game. So that delayed gratification, she was happy to do extended, gaining phases, which many women, will often sort of like shy away from as soon as they start seeing that scale go up, particularly if they've been overweight previously. And she wanted to learn. To give you an example, last year I ran a coaching course for all of my online clients, and Emma was there every week. She'll watch every episode. She's constantly asking questions. She always wants to improve her knowledge base. And those 2 factors have been the things that have probably sort of allowed her to keep progressing with her physique when so many people will plateau fairly early doors. And I would say sort of like women in general can be really shy about committing to those longer term gaining phases, but Emma has committed to them over and over again. During the time that I've worked with her, we have run multiple, like 18-month to 2-year gaining phases and seen unbelievably drastic changes in muscularity each time we've done that. And so many of these people that want to look like Emma will say, look, I'm willing to do what it takes. I want the glutes, I want the quads, blah, blah, blah. But they're not willing to commit to significant periods of seeing their body weight go up, of feeling fluffy, of having to go on holiday midway through a bulk. These are the sacrifices that are, the cost that you pay in order to achieve those really sort of like top tier physiques. And being willing to commit to that longer term process, committing to those gaining phases, is what has allowed Em to go from, very, very skinny, not much muscle mass, to now having a physique that, if she wanted to, would probably win a pro card in most, natural federations if she were to diet all the way down. Like, she has an incredibly well balanced and very muscular physique, particularly, for her size. She can do some incredible things in the gym. She's very, very strong these days. So she has committed to that long-term process, and that would be the biggest thing that I would say. Like, every time you try to take a shortcut, you are delaying reaching that long-term goal. Every time you say, yeah, I'm going to bring up my glutes, my lower body, whatever body part it may be, and you've got this long gaining phase planned out and you turn back after 3 months because your abs start to fade a little bit, you're delaying reaching that long-term goal. And that is the single thing that Emma has done unbelievably well, even when it has been uncomfortable for her to do so. Like, there is no doubt at all that it is tougher for women to commit to long-term gaining phases than it is for men. Okay, like men were just like, yeah, I'm getting big, like, yeah, you're bulky, you might get a bit fat, but no one gives a shit. Whereas if a girl gets fat, it is like, oh, she's let herself go and stuff like that. So there is much more societal pressure against women. It's getting better. These days, like gym culture is much more well accepted. People understand, doing a bulk. But when Em and I first started together, like that, there wasn't the same level of acceptance for that. People were considered to just be getting fat when they did a bulking phase. But Em has stuck at it through years and years and years of it being difficult at times and has come out the other side with a really, really awesome physique. It hasn't been like without its ups and downs. We have run multiple gaining, fat loss phases. And that includes like COVID. There was a stage where we were training with, I think, some like 20 kilos worth of plastic plates, one kettlebell and a red TheraBand. And that was all she had for COVID. But we kept her making progress. And she has never, ever fallen off. Not in the entire time that I've coached her. We've continued setting new goals, working towards them, educating along the way. And I think that's what's kept us sort of really invested along the way. It's knowing what's next, knowing what sort of like skills are required to be able to reach that next level. And her physique has kept growing along the way. But yeah, we've had some significant challenges to navigate. We had injuries early doors. Back in the day, she was a real like deadlift fan, and we had a few lower back strains, a little bit of like mental fuckery that goes with that, and a fear of re-exposing that lower back to tension. So we've had to navigate a few things like that. We've had to navigate, truthfully, some issues with like body dysmorphia. There were stages where Em was really conscious about her upper body. I would always say, look, fucking hell, most people would kill to have an upper body like yours. She'd be like, no, I'm worried about it. I want to stop training it, blah, blah, blah. And I think probably one of the things that I've given her over the years has been like an objective view. And basically just telling her, look, don't bail on this cutting phase on this gaining phase when you start to feel a bit fluffy. Don't completely cut out upper body training. Your mindset will change and you'll be glad you've done it. And she's now in a phase where she absolutely loves the way that her upper body looks. So a lot of it has just been making sure that we continue along that path of what we have laid out and where we're trying to get. And that has allowed her to keep consistently progressing her physique over many, many years. Okay, like a lot of people, like I said, they'll have a good start when they first start in the gym and then they never see any results after that. They don't invest in their education, so they don't learn what the next steps are. They don't commit to things like those longer gaining phases because they aren't willing to suffer any price for the goals they say they really want to achieve. And as a result, they get stuck after those newbie gains. But with Emma, she's got a bit better with every single gaining phase. We've done photo shoot preps back in, I think we did one in 2020 and then again in 2022, each time looking sort of like noticeably better because we'd invested in those gaining phases in between, darted back down, made the improvements. When we first started, in her first couple of sort of like fat loss phases, we would find that she'd be really happy with the way her body looked, lower body looked whilst in the gaining phases. And then during the cutting phases, she'd be like, oh my God, my glutes have disappeared. So, we have had to spend years really specializing for lower body. So for most of the time that I've trained her, certainly the last sort of like 6 years, we have used almost identical splits. Okay, so we have used a lower, upper, lower, full body split and just steadily built our training volumes across those gaining phases. So start very simple straight sets and then escalate our weekly volumes and our use of intensity techniques across those longer gaining phases, dialing it up to the point where her lower body training is absolutely brutal. Some of the stuff that she can do in the gym is unbelievably impressive. She can back squat like 110, RDL very similar. She can do chin-ups with a 20 kilo plate hanging off her. Like, this girl is unbelievably strong these days. But it has taken us years of just gradually building things up to get to that point. Quite often she's someone that would doubt herself, would under-select loads. So I have to be sort of like all over her, looking at a training log saying, look, you're well short of what you could be doing on this, and she will inevitably then make that adjustment and be like, yep, you're right. She's very, very coachable, okay? So she's very good at communicating things that she's struggling with. She's very honest. If she's struggling with something, she'll tell me. And as a result, we can always navigate any issues that she's come up across over that long period of time, okay? I think sort of one of her other great attributes, last week I talked about Corey, who's like Mr. Intense. He wants everything to happen as quickly as possible, and he'll do anything required to make that happen on a weekly basis. Emma is a little bit more chilled. She's consistent, okay? Like I said, she's never fallen off in the 9 years that I've known her. She's just been chugging away. We've trained 4 days a week for most of that time. We're actually now training 3 days a week during a mini cup to get some volume resensitization. And then we'll go again into this gaining phase, set some new goals and go after them to attack them. Like I said, she has a physique that if she were to choose to compete in natural bodybuilding would undoubtedly be extremely well rewarded, but it's not something that she's interested in. And truthfully, as a coach, I talk more people out of competing than I talk into it. It's something that you have to really want to do and that has intrinsic value to you. It's not something you should do for the wrong reasons, because it is a difficult choice to make. And Emma has never felt like that's something she really wants to be a part of. But it is something that she has easily got the physique to do. And I always say, look, it is better to have people surprised that you don't compete than be surprised that you do compete, because you just don't look like you should. One of the key things that she is very consistent with, but truthfully unbelievably boring with, is her nutrition. So over the years, she'll post some of her meal creations, and I'm adamant that it loses me potential clients every time. So I think she gains us plenty of clients with the way her physique looks, but when people think, oh God, do I have to eat that to look the way she does? I'm sure they just give up and go back to eating KFC, because, oh my God, this girl eats the most boring diet you've ever seen. That is something we're working on now. Ironically, she works in catering. We are working on it now. So, each week I have the challenge, I give her the challenge of eating, more fruits and vegetables. We keep a log than she ate the week before. I think, a lot of her previous struggles with the way her physique looked when she was overweight probably stemmed from her slightly interesting and potentially slightly neurodivergent palate choices. She doesn't like almost any fruits and veg. Eats a very, very boring diet, and is someone that previously I think struggled to prioritize herself. So, when she was only cooking for her, she wouldn't put the effort into it. And I think a lot of women fall into that trap. If it's only for them, they'll have a girl dinner. Whereas Em these days, phenomenal at hitting her macros. She still creates some interesting looking creations with her nutrition, but her major sort of attributes are just consistency. Every week, she's on top of the major variables. She focuses on her sleep. She focuses on hitting her macros, which she has tracked pretty damn diligently for the last 9 years. You don't always have to track macros, but if you do want, truly top tier results like the ones Em has achieved, then you probably don't want to be looking to cut too many corners. You want to be looking, how do I get a better result, rather than how do I make this easier on myself? And that is something that Emma has always been truly, truly excellent at. She's very honest with herself. She's honest about where she wants to get to and how much that means to her. And she's always been willing to do what it takes to get there. And that will be the take-home message from today's one. If you want top-tier results, you do have to be willing to commit to the process that is required to achieve those results. And that is exactly what Emma has done. And that's why she now looks the way that she looks.